When we think about addressing climate change and sustainability as a huge human challenge, it is very clear that the solutions and the innovations that are going to help us meet this challenge are not the province of any one country, any one demographic, any one particular group of people. And in fact, taking it a step further, I am quite sure that if we're going to successfully combat climate change in the timescales and with the spread geographically and demographically necessary, the solutions are going to have to come from a diverse group of founders and innovators in partnership with major partners like the government, et cetera. There's a couple of things that I think are really important about this. The first is that there's a kind of a defensive mentality, which is important to understand. The impacts of climate change will oftentimes be most felt by folks from underrepresented communities. For example, the big storms and other weather components of the climate crisis are definitely things that affect the underrepresented communities, for example, in the Ninth Ward in New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina, but there are countless examples. And those communities also are communities that most oftentimes are underinsured, that don't have perhaps buildings at the top of the building standards. And so you're going to see much more serious ramifications of climate inequity hitting those communities. In the same way, though, for example, some of the most exciting solutions to the climate challenge are also still relatively expensive. We're pushing the price down of things like rooftop solar and energy efficiency retrofits or batteries you can put in your garage wall, but they're still reasonably expensive. And so you tend to see those adopted in affluent communities, which are not from underrepresented minorities. There is, however, a proactive version of this narrative, which is really important to fold in, which is that underrepresented communities, for example, women who make enormous component of the buying decisions for households in America and around the world, the Black community that live in a lot of these most affected communities and can see different ways of approaching these problems, cannot be left out of the table of those who are addressing the problem. Equally, the workforce that's doing this work, that is making homes and buildings more energy efficient, must have diversity in it, because there's also a lot of folks from underrepresented communities that could take this training and do amazing work to put the climate future first. And last but not least, I think if we're dealing with a human scale problem like climate change, we need the solutions to have authenticity. These cannot be solutions that come from some very rarefied group of founders and financiers that come from on high that are imposed upon communities around the world. These solutions, when done properly, should look like the world, come from the world, have the vision of solutions that are required by people who live all around the world. And so it is important for us to ensure that climate solutions, climate founders are from Black communities, that there are female founders involved, that essentially the entire world is represented in the solution, just as it has been represented in the problem.